The narrator set the stage as night rolled over Cape Wrath Observatory, where Alex Mercer watched the sky. He traced the rumor that a dark object had circled Earth for decades, unseen yet always present. Alex said, if it exists, it left a fingerprint. He sifted through cold logs that clicked like teeth in the dark control room. Dr. Maya Lin entered with a thermos and a warning in her eyes. Maya said, "Ghosts are safer than secrets, Alex." The spectrometer hummed as an anomalous ping slid across the screen like a thin blade. Alex said that track is polar and wrong for debris. The narrator noted how silence thickened when the signal repeated at a perfect interval. Director Elias Ward's memo flashed on a side monitor, redacted lines like bars on a cage. Maya said, "Walk lightly, someone owns this sky." The narrator traced the rumor back to a 1920s echo that bounced where none should have returned. Alex said, "Long delay echoes map to legends." He pulled Morse logs from a brittle archive and found a pattern that felt rehearsed. Maya said, "Old ghosts rehearse when people feed them power." The wind pressed at the observatory walls while printers spat thin paper like white tongues. Alex said, "If a transmitter rode a polar path, it could sing to us across decades." A breaker thumped, and the lights dimmed, then steadied with a hush. Maya said, "Ward's memo means observers. Observe the observers." The narrator noted how fear sharpened curiosity the way frost sharpens glass. Alex said, "We find the sender, or become its script." The narrator followed the signal as it slipped into a silence window over the Arctic like a held breath. Alex said, "Now we aim the dish and remove doubt." He keyed the mount while gears rolled with a tired groan. Maya said, "We log everything, we tell nothing." The dish shuddered and settled on a cold bearing that felt older than the building. Alex said, "Acquisition in 3, hold steady." A chime rang once, pure as a glass edge. Maya said, "That is not debris talking." The screen unfolded, a lattice of intervals that stepped like measured footsteps. Alex said, "Someone, somewhere, keeps time with us." The narrator widened the lens to the bureaucracy that wrapped the sky like wire. An encrypted chat popped with a new handle, and the name Rook perched on the screen. "Rook," said, "you are not first to hear that music." Alex said, "Then send the score." The reply arrived as a grid of times that matched their own signal by minutes. Maya said, "If this is bait, they know our appetite." The server room breathed hot air while a fan rattled like a trapped moth. Alex said, "Cross-check the epochs against satellite catalogs." The matches fell away, and nothing human stood where the track cut. Rook wrote, "Your window closes before dawn." The narrator drew a line from doubt to resolve as thunder rolled far out at sea. A new alert stamped the screen with a clearance header tied to Director Elias Ward. Ward said, "Cease collection and secure media." Alex said, "We are scientists, not janitors." Maya said, "Defiance has a receipt." The printer clicked as instructions piled like thin threats. Alex said, "If we shut down, the track vanishes and the world sleeps." He opened a hidden recorder that wrote to an old drive with no address. Maya said, "One copy survives or none of this mattered." The narrator felt the night lean in as if to listen. The narrator traced a constellation of rumors that stretched from Marconi to Cold War tracking pits. Alex said, "Legends persist because something feeds them." He opened a map layered with pins that hugged a polar route like stitches. Maya said, "A myth with coordinates stops being a myth." The observatory ticked as cooling metal settled after the storm's breath. Alex said, "Long delay echoes appeared after major radar tests." He circled dates that paired with blackout memos like twins. Maya said, "Correlation becomes a leash when someone pulls it." A faint carrier sang against the floor noise like a tuning fork. Alex said, "The source returns at 96 minutes, precise as a clock." The narrator felt history lean forward, as if listening through old wires. The narrator introduced the man who kept doors shut by calling them safety. Director Elias Ward placed a secure call that tightened the room. Ward said, "Your instruments misinterpret multipath and atmospheric scatter." Alex said, "Scatter does not arrive on a metronome." Ward's voice softened the way velvet hides a blade. Ward said, "Archive, report, then stand down." Maya said, "If this is a mistake, let it be measured in the open." Silence pooled, and even the fans seemed to listen for permission. Ward said, "Your mission is stewardship, not theater." The line clicked dead, precise as the intervals on their screen. The narrator marked the first open warning. The narrator followed Alex into the basement archive where dust kept the hours. He lifted a box tagged with numbers that smelled like old ozone. Alex said, "Telemetry from the polar gap, 1974 to 1978. He found a photo of a dark wedge near a blue limb, grainy as a secret. Maya said, "Artifacts lie, but they lie in similar ways." He scanned margins where a name reappeared beside redacted blocks. Alex said, "E. Ward, then a junior analyst, flags anomalies for removal." The fluorescent buzzed like a tired wasp above their heads. Maya said, "He learned the tune before he held the baton." A clatter upstairs sent a hush through the shelves like a wave. The narrator noted how truth collects in corners that brooms avoid. The narrator announced a voice that moved like a rook between files and night. The chat handle returned with a tone that left no footprints. Rook said, "Your 96-minute return is older than your catalog." Alex said, "Prove it with epochs." A packet slid in, a ledger of passes annotated in terse codes. Maya said, "Who are you when the lights come on?" "Rook," said someone you will not want to meet. The data overlaid their track like bones under skin. Alex said, "These times match the Arctic silence window." Rook said, "Look for carrier drift when Aurora wakes." The narrator watched a door open without a hinge. The narrator drew the line from secrecy to strategy, as dawn pressed a thin silver at the window. Ward sent a courier notice that felt heavier than paper. Ward said, "Compliance will preserve your funding and your staff." Alex said, "We are not paid to be blind." Maya said, "We will document custody before it vanishes." The printer churned while the dish reported a slight drift that shadowed the Aurora. Alex said, "The carrier moves with the storm, just as Rook promised." The building thrummed, as if a larger engine had woken beneath it. Maya said, "If we yield now, the next report writes us out." The narrator set the stakes like coordinates no one could misread. The narrator revealed how trust twisted when Thomas Kane arrived with a smile too polished. Kane said, "You need someone who has navigated archives deeper than this." Alex said, "Access comes with motives." Kane leaned on the console, posture relaxed, but eyes sharp. Maya said, "Credentials mean little when ghosts write their own names." Kane pulled a folder marked obsolete, its pages heavy with copied diagrams. Alex said, "Your timing is convenient, too much so." The narrator marked the shadow that entered as an ally, but carried a hidden weight. The narrator described how Alex pulled a contact sheet from microfilm showing a black wedge at high altitude. Alex said, "This frame dates back to 1954, long before official satellites." Maya said, "The shape is no lens flare." Kane leaned closer, whispering, "Nor is it debris." The grains swam under magnification, like static waves. Alex said, "It is locked in polar path, repeating every 96 minutes. The narrator noted that photographs carried the weight of witnesses who never spoke aloud. The narrator recounted a clash as Ward's directives arrived with fresh authority. "Ward said destroy derivative files and clear caches now." Alex said, "Your name has been tied to these anomalies since 1974. The line froze with his silence, then resumed. "Ward said patterns lie when eyes want them to." Maya said, "But records keep circling back like the satellite itself." The tension cut the air sharper than the hum of the fans. The narrator noted the cage tightening around their search. The narrator followed Maya's voice as she urged pause. Maya said, "We must consider the cost of stepping further." Alex said, "Cost is the measure of truth, not its deterrent." Kane adjusted his cufflinks and smiled faintly. Kane said, "Truth is not a single line, it is layers that peel away." The hum of electronics seemed louder, like an impatient witness. Maya said, "I fear the layers cut deeper than you realize." The narrator marked the rift widening among allies as silence filled what trust had emptied. The narrator described the moment data unfolded like a confession. The intercepted transmission spilled into the recorder, structured in repeating steps. Alex said, "This is deliberate, coded beyond chance." Maya said, "Each pulse is aligned, like footsteps in the dark." Kane leaned in, eyes sharp, whispering, "Then someone is walking with us." The rhythm carried weight, precise yet unsettling. Alex said, "This cannot be ignored or buried." The narrator knew the signal had become a voice, even if no mouth spoke it. The narrator led them to a coastal village where radio towers rusted like skeletons. Elena Varga opened a tin box and set it on the table with careful hands. Elena said, "My brother vanished after sending a final beacon." Alex said, "His call sign appears in our archives." Maya said, "What did he transmit before he went silent?" Elena slid out a reel of tape and a photo of a black wedge over a pale horizon. Elena said, "He believed something in polar orbit, listened, and answered." The room carried the smell of salt and solder. The narrator felt the past lean forward, asking to be heard before it drifted away again. The narrator watched the rune shrink around the artifact as Alex threaded the reel. Alex said, "We digitize, we do not alter." The machine clicked, and the tape whispered like rain. Maya said, "Markers match our interval map, tight. Elena said, "He logged Aurora, then a shadow crossing fast." A thin tone rose and fell, with a patient rhythm. Alex said, "This signature pairs with our 96-minute return." Elena whispered, "He thought it was waiting for him." The narrator felt the weight of a promise sealed by static and grief. The narrator opened the wound that time refused to close. Elena said, "He left this note and the coordinates." Alex said, "The path is the same polar corridor we track." Maya said, "Every thread knots at the same altitude." Thunder rolled far offshore like a slow drum. Elena said, "I filed reports and the replies arrived blacked out." Alex said, "Someone knew and erased the edges." Maya said, "We document custody from this moment forward." The narrator marked the moment sorrow became evidence. The narrator announced the intruder who arrived without footsteps. Rook pinged the encrypted channel with a brief flare. "Rook," said careful, "the ally at your table plays both boards." Alex said, "Name the move, or stop speaking in riddles." Rook said, "Look for duplicated hashes in your shared folders." Maya said, "If true, our leak sits in the room." Elena said, "I have nothing but the truth and my brother's voice." The cursor blinked like a metronome waiting for confession. The narrator felt the air thin as trust was weighed on a silent scale. The narrator closed the act with a vow cut from iron. Alex said, "We continue even if the room divides." Maya said, "We build a clean chain and shadow the suspect." Elena said, "Take the tape and the note, but bring me back the truth." Wind pressed the door as if urging them out to sea. Alex said, "The signal is a witness, and witnesses deserve daylight." Maya said, "We will secure the archive and mirror it off-site now." The narrator fixed the compass on the course that could not be safely sailed, yet could not be abandoned. The narrator described how Thomas Kane returned with calm assurance and too many answers. Kane said, "Ward does not own every file, and I have proof." Alex said, "Proof offered too easily tastes like bait." Maya said, "We tread a line where every hand extends a blade." Kane placed a sealed envelope on the table, marked with codes. Alex said, "Why risk exposure now?" Kane said, "Because truth is safer in motion than in silence." The narrator sensed a betrayal that had not yet uncoiled but already tasted of iron. The narrator tracked the fissures as Alex opened the envelope. Inside lay coordinates paired with telemetry logs. Alex said, "These are authentic but harvested outside normal access." Maya said, "If you stole them, Ward will bury us all." Kane said, "I borrowed from shadows that already hide you." Alex's grip tightened on the printout as doubt gnawed. Maya said, "We cannot build on stolen ground." Kane smiled thinly. Kane said, "Stolen ground is the only ground left." The narrator noted trust, bleeding like ink in water. The narrator revealed how false evidence took root. A new disk spun on the console, its files claiming transmissions were solar reflections. Alex said, "These graphs are too clean, they smell of edits." Maya said, "The timestamps don't align with auroral bursts." Kane said, "Data integrity shifts when systems age." Silence deepened, broken by the slow whir of fans. Alex said, "This was crafted to erase the anomaly." Maya said, "If we accept it, we betray our own eyes." The narrator marked deception sliding into the open like oil on water. The narrator described the knife when it turned. Maya found duplicate hashes in Kane's shared folder. Maya said, "These files carry your digital fingerprint." Alex said, "So the leak sat at our table." Kane said, "Information must move, even if blood carries it." Alex rose, fists clenched, as betrayal burned. Maya said, "Your help was sabotage wrapped in charm." Kane said, "You mistake betrayal for strategy." The narrator marked the wound as personal and deep, one trust torn beyond repair. The narrator sealed the act as silence pressed heavier than thunder. Kane said, "Without me, you will lose the signal and the war." Alex said, "We would rather lose than kneel to poison." Maya said, "We secure the record no matter who falls." Kane's smile fractured before fading. Alex said, "You are cut from our circle." Papers rattled as lightning cracked above the sea. The narrator marked resolve hardening into steel, betrayal now etched into their path. The narrator set the hour when the archive yielded what it had hidden out of habit. Alex said, "The drift aligns with last night's aurora and with Elena's tape." Maya said, "If the signal keys to storms, it piggybacks on the sky." The waveforms stepped like careful boots in snow, never rushing, never tiring. Alex said, "Cross-check against the Arctic silence window again." The result returned as a perfect braid of intervals and void. Maya said, "The pattern breathes like a sleeper that knows it is watched." A soft alert chimed as a checksum matched a reel from 1976. Alex said, "Her brother's beacon threads this exact lattice." The narrator felt a name return from the cold, not as a ghost, but as a fact. The narrator opened the file marked with coordinates that pointed nowhere and everywhere. Maya said, "Overlay the beacon with shipping lanes and military passes." The map cleared like fog lifting from a harbor at dawn. Alex said, "No human timetable survives this overlay." He added a layer of auroral indices that danced like green fire across the pole. Maya said, "Each pulse rides the current, arriving like tide at a stone." A final pane revealed a faint identifier that matched the old reel. Alex said, "This is Elena's brother speaking through static and time." The narrator heard grief become direction rather than weight. The narrator marked the hour. Ward tried to close the door with policy and a polished voice. "Ward," said, "you are misinterpreting ionospheric artifacts again." Alex said, "Artifacts do not carry a dead man's timing." Ward paused, and the silence felt curated, like a gallery wall. Maya said, "We can transmit a controlled ping and measure the reply." Ward said, "You will not transmit without clearance." The channel logged his authorization level like a gavel. Alex said, "Then we listen and let the sky answer for us." The narrator felt the contest narrow to a single pass and a single proof. The narrator guided the lens back to the dish where metal met weather and weather met code. Maya said, "Receiver gain at spec, logging at millisecond resolution." Alex said, We ride the leading edge of the aurora and take what it gives. Wind swept across the platform, and the sea below answered with a low roar. The interval returned, slighted by drift, then locked as if choosing them. Maya said, "Carrier stable, noise floor falling." Alex said, "Start the clean record and mirror off-site now." The narrator watched the night open like an iris. The narrator stood with them as the victim's story stepped out of the noise and took its place. A secondary cadence emerged beneath the main return, hesitant and human. Alex said, he encoded call sign and time with the carrier. Maya said, "This is a distress lattice, not an echo." The cadence repeated, then ended on a frequency that pointed to the Arctic corridor. Alex said, "He was taken by the silence window itself." Maya said, "Not lost, but pinned to a clock that never stopped." The narrator named the revelation. The Black Knight did not speak, it listened and answered only with perfect timing. The narrator opened the final act with the return of Rook, a ghost wrapped in code. The terminal flashed alive as the sky paled toward dawn. Rook said, "You have heard the cadence, but you do not yet know its sender." Alex said, "Then write the last line, or stop haunting us." Maya said, "We have risked everything, and truth has already taken its toll." Rook said, "The night is not a transmitter. It is a mirror, bending voices and feeding them back with precision." Silence filled the room before the next line appeared. Rook said, "It was built, not found." The narrator let the words strike like thunder with no storm. The narrator traced the revelation as data cascaded from encrypted files. Alex said, "These schematics are not natural anomalies." Maya said, "They are blueprints, machine-born." Rook wrote, "The Black Knight predates your first satellite." The files showed layered circuits, orbital adjustments, and coded maintenance logs. Alex said, "Someone placed it here to watch us, and to listen." Maya said, "Every echo has been surveillance, not myth." The narrator felt the myth collapse into steel and circuitry, a truth heavier than legend. The narrator pulled back to frame the question of scale. Maya said, "If it listens, who receives its record?" Alex said, "Not us, not now, but something above us." The aurora shimmered faintly, as if the sky itself breathed. Rook wrote, "Every species thinks itself the author. Few realize they are the manuscript." Alex said, "Then humanity has been footnotes to another's archive." Maya whispered, "We are seen, measured, and remembered." The narrator asked aloud what it meant to live under an ancient eye. The narrator described the final defiance. Alex said, "We publish everything, no matter the risk." Maya said, "Ward will erase us if he can." Alex said, "He cannot erase the world once it has seen." They uploaded logs, cadences, and schematics to mirrored servers scattered across continents. The fans hummed as though carrying secrets on their breath. Maya said, "This truth leaves our hands now." The narrator felt the choice made. Survival was uncertain, but silence was impossible. The narrator closed with silence heavier than thunder. The Black Knight crossed overhead, its shadow sliding across Earth, unseen by most. Alex said, "It is not a myth, it is a mirror, and it waits." Maya said, "The world may never be ready, but we will not look away." The tape reel slowed to stillness, and the servers blinked their confirmation. Dawn poured cold light into the observatory, dissolving shadows but not fear. The narrator ended with a truth left open. The mystery remained, but its watchers would never again be unchallenged.